Hello and welcome to Leica Review. Today we are continuing our discussion on improving your photography series. This is the part 2, and this is about choosing your gear for flash photography, which is a very important part of taking your photography into the next level. I'll be talking about some of the selections that I have used in the past and my experiences, also how to choose the right flash accessories to ensure your photography is up to par. And that means knowing what it takes and how the light is shaped, and also knowing the brands. And there are a lot of brands out there, especially the Chinese brands that have come out in the last decade or so. They have improved in quality. Some are of high quality, some are not. What is important is understanding how the flash works. Now, most people think that they're going to need very expensive lighting equipment. They're going to need flash that is strobes and spend thousands and thousands of dollars. What I'm about to show you today is about $150 for the light modifier that I chose and I use often extensively in my work. Also, some of the equipment that I use specifically for lighting subjects for portraiture. And also I've used this for fashion photography outdoors, which makes it very easy and very portable. On my last trip to Japan, where I did some fashion photography for a client of mine, I have chosen these two light modifiers along with two flashes to create the images that I have created. Now, most people think that they were created with far more expensive equipment. I didn't have that choice. I had to travel with extremely light equipment. And as it turned out, the images were very well liked and the client was very happy. Personally, I think that understanding a flash is the key factor, and the larger and more powerful or the different type of light modifiers will also change that, but into a small degree. What is important is having the flash there. Of course, in our future episodes, we'll be talking about how the light modifiers work and what light modifiers to use and how they shape the light in different forms. What I will be talking about is the basic, the startup, the intro into it, so that you have at least a basic understanding or at least a good understanding of how the modifiers can help to shape the light. Now, of course, in our previous discussion in episode 1, I have mentioned that I use Leica's SF60, which is produced by Nissen. And this is that item that I'm talking about. It's very compact and it's very powerful. It has a 197 that is which means it's going to be able to put out a lot of power. In the past, these lighting equipment, the flashes were about 80, 90. This is 197, which means that it's going to have a very powerful output and it should satisfy most needs. It's not going to overpower the sun, but it's enough to fill in anything that is darkly lit or needs an extra additional light to create that fantastic image you're looking for, especially if you're doing photography during daytime, especially when the light is low, or if you have a situation where there is high contrast, dark clouds appearing, or things where there's the sun is setting and you have shadows. This is the kind of flash that will give you great results. Of course, there are things that you can get to make this flash work even better, which I will be discussing in our next episode. But I also recommend that you get this one, which is the SFC1. SFC1 is an incredible unit. It allows you to control multiple lights from a single unit. You can put this on top of your camera and be able to use it. Right now I have a brown color that I'm using because that's my studio lights, but this is what I use when I travel. This one is the one that has served me quite well. I've never had a misfire on this one, which is very, very important, because you'll find that over the time that you use it, especially when the units get old, there is a misfire that happens often. This one is very good, and also you can see the flash power output on the screen, and it tells you how much of it you are using. And you're gonna find that it is a very versatile unit because you can control it from a considerable distance. And this is the one I use quite often. Of course, this again is produced by Nissen. They have a very similar unit. They have produced it for different types of cameras, the Nikons and Canons and Fujis and Sonys. They have not specifically one that they have produced for Leica. Leica has it branded in their own name, but I can tell you from the use that they are of excellent quality. And for the sake of investment purposes, I think that if you bought this set and use it 10, 15, or 20 years, you're going to get your money out of it incredibly well. And if you do, for example, one event shoot, one wedding, or anything as such, it will cover the cost of it and give you multiple returns as you use it. Now, these units are great in themselves. You can use this one here, SF60. It turns in different directions as such, as you can see, and it has this click mechanism that's wonderful. And also it can be pointed up or down, which makes it wonderful. What I do find with using these equipments is that it needs a modification in the way that light is spread. Of course, you can bounce it off a wall or off some ceiling. It will give you a certain look, but that is going to be a very broad spread light. I like to be able to shape the light in more specific form, and that is where this particular unit comes in, which is the Westcott Rapid Box. This is a 26-inch one. It comes in this light little bag. As you can see, this unit is quite light, quite small. This is what I take on my travels, and I'm going to show you some of the ways that I have used this. And also you can find this, I put a link down below in the description section on how you can get this. And this thing costs $149, which is very, very cheap for the price that it is. And you will find that this is a very well-made unit. And what you can do is you can pretty much use it like a beauty dish. You can use it like a softbox. It has a very well-built structure. And what I do is when I go to a location, I just pop it open. No poles to put in, nothing to reassemble. It's just a very closed unit. It just is one single, and it just opens up like a flower, producing that incredible image that I seek. Besides this, I have, of course, another one that's a 26-inch, so I can use it for different ways of lighting, and a strip box. Strip box is the one that is long and thin. So put a link down below for that. It's a little bit more expensive for some reason. They always charge a little bit more for strip boxes, although the material probably is not going to make all that much difference in terms of construction, but the way it is designed and marketed, it costs about $269. And that is a vital unit because it gives you this long, beautiful strip of light that is going to light an accent on the hair or in the body or in the product that you're shooting. For me, I think using it for different types of photography has served me very well. I've gone into Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and restaurants have asked me to photograph their food, and I've done those works. They were wonderful, easy to work with. I just set it up, put on the light, and you could shoot pretty much against the light and get incredible images. For me, those are things that should be in consideration when you're doing it. Of course, you don't need all three of the modifiers, but if you do get at least two, that will give you more versatility. If you go onto Broncolor website, there are lots of videos that shows you how you can use a single light flash system where you can shape the light in a way that you can create great portraitures, great product photographies, things that are beautiful. Now, of course, as you get more skilled in your photography and you get to use things like Photoshop and Lightroom, what you can do is you can do composites. What it means is you can take multiple images, put them together to create an image. So you don't actually need 3 or 4 or 5 lights as the most often used in flash photography for products. You can use a single light and then put all those images together to create one single image. And I've seen this done quite extensively on YouTube, so I can provide some of those links if people want to watch it. Personally, I think that what is important is to build through those steps and learn how images can be put together and how it can be created. And the way to create those images is to use the flash in a specific manner, and that is to know what angle of light is going to illuminate that subject best. For example, if you're shooting a portraiture, you may want to have the light coming from the side to create a Rembrandt look, or you could be having the light come from above to create more of a beauty look that is classical Hollywood style, like Hurrell's photographs. It could be a hard light, it could be a soft light, depending on what you want to bring out in the subject. For example, if you're shooting an older person, you may not want to use light that is harsh, in the fact that it will bring out stronger contrasts, stronger shadows, creating more lines on the face. You may want to use a softer light. But conversely, if that is your idea to show a very strong character, it may be something that you may use. In flash photography, it is an option that you have, and that is where this Lightbox rapid box comes in, because you can take the front diffuser off and create a hard light with the shiny specular lights, and that is going to give you that fashiony look. And if somebody is young and beautiful, if, for example, your wife, your girlfriend, or somebody whom you know is got beautiful skin, this is the kind of applications that will work wonderful for those. For those other applications where you may want to use a softer light, for example, for food photography or other forms, this works well as well because it has a diffusion front panel. And then you can use grids, which means these directional light that you can create by putting grids in front of the softbox, and that directs the light even more, creating a very focused light. And that is what I often use when I'm doing portraiture. It is not always the ideal light to use, but it is a light that has worked very well for me over the years, because I know that's what I want to put emphasis on. I want to create contrast between dark and the light, and then have these gradation of tones. This works especially well if you're doing black and white type of photography, which Leica cameras are very good for, because they bring out beautiful micro contrasts, they have beautiful renderings. And if you're using one of the older lenses like the Noctilux F1, which I'll also put links down below, is going to give you those beautiful creamy bokehs along with this sharp contrasty images that have this incredible micro contrast. That's what I look for. And most people think that modern lenses are incredibly well. Well, they have one little problem. They have a uniformity which makes every other lens in the market look the same. That's why investing in lenses in Leica's lineup is a great investment, because the formula they have used creates this incredible detail and thing that I call 3D pop, which is the separation from the background, and that is attained by the dramatic fall off that happens between the in focus and out of focus parts of the image. And that is what I look for when I want to create that three-dimensionality. People have asked me in the past what I mean by that. It means that the person standing in front of the image appears to be not blended into the background, but separated as our eyes see it. It's very hard to reflect it on a two-dimensional surface, which is a photograph. But if you do it right, you are going to be able to do that. And that's why it is important to invest in good lenses. Also, using these equipments, you might want to try out a challenge, which I will start, which is to take a photograph every day of an object or a person from a different point of lighting. So what that means is you may want to use it with addition to a window light to light up the darker side of the face, or you may want to use it in an outdoor environment to fill in the shadows, or you may want to use it in a circumstance where you're using it to photograph an object. Whichever challenge that you take, it should be a challenge where you're exploring how this light affects your photography. What you will also find is that when you're doing photography out on the street, you're going to find that the light, like the sun, is coming from above, and oftentimes creates darker lights under the eyes, or makes the eyes lose their detail. That is what happens most of the time when you're doing harsh lighting under the sun. These kind of instruments like the flashes give you that opportunity to fill in those shadows so you can see. As you know, most cameras are now equipped with eye tracking or eye focus, where it allows you to focus and capture the image with the eye in focus. So that is a very important factor. If you want to have a communication through the photographs, getting those eyes in focus and be visible in the photograph gives you a great advantage. It gives you a connection with the viewer, it gives you a connection with the subject, and that's what I always say. If you're going to use the flash in an effective way, it doesn't need to look like a flash. It needs to just fill in enough light to give you the desired look. It can make it very naturalistic, it could be very beautiful, and all you have to do is make a small investment, get a light modifier, a flash, and you're good to go. Now, people have also asked me, what about putting a smaller modifier if I don't want to carry around a softbox like the Westcott? Well, there are options. There's MagMod, which is kind of an instrument that you can put in front of the flash, which is about the diameter of about 3-4 inches or 10-12 centimeters, where you can modify it with gels, you can modify it with grizz. You can also have it diffused, what that provides is the ability to shed the light and shape it in a way that you're going to be able to highlight things. I'll give you a good example. If you're photographing somebody on the street and you want to put a direct light on their face and less on their body, that comes from highlighting a point in the photograph, the grids that you can put in front of this flash is going to give you that opportunity. And you can just hold it in your hands, take it off the camera, and be able to shape it. You might have seen this done repeatedly by journalists or other professionals. This is the way they approach it. Personally, I like to be able to have a precise control of the light when I'm photographing. This gives me the advantage to know my composition and be able to make alterations and create images that are compelling, and that comes from knowing how to use the flash. Another important factor when I'm using flash is creation of separation from the background. One of the ways that you might have seen flash being used is they light up the background, creates a separation between the subject and the background. A lot of these newer lenses that have very shallow depth of field creates this creamy bokeh with the subject in front, but you don't really see the separation. It just seems like there's a flat panel right behind the subject, and that is something that is very disturbing to the eye, or it's something that is not as pleasing when you want to create a three-dimensionality. A flash allows you to create that separation. If you have a flash and you put it right behind the person, even if the person is not lit directly with the flash, what you will have is the separation from the background, giving you that look that that separates the person and creates that three-dimensionality in the images. I've seen, and throughout the years, just everyone that I know has come into a workshop without a flash, and I always say, if you have a flash, you can do so much more. And I've gone to great lengths to explain the use of flashes to my students, to my workshop attendees, and they have found that to be a very useful instrument. And this is where it will become very important for you to explore that venue. Even if you have just used natural light as your source, try it, see how it does. Try to fill in those details. Also, what you'll find is I use a lot of reflectors. Reflectors like a white reflector, a gold reflector, even a silver reflector, to fill in those details and shadows when flash is not available. You can carry the disc in your bag, you can put it on your belt. When you're traveling, you can take those out and just flip it open and then be able to fold it back into this little shelf. That is something I also use, and I highly recommend it if you're doing this kind of photography. Of course, it is not the coolest thing to flip that out when you're doing a photography in Venice, but it is something that will give you a great image, and who cares what happens afterwards. Nobody's going to remember you flipped out a reflector. What they will remember is how good that image looks. And if you fill in the shadows under the eyes and the chin, imagine how that is going to affect your photography. Now, if you do not want to use a reflector, you can always take off the flash and then shine it from the bottom and then get that lit up. Of course, you have to be very careful to create that look very precisely, otherwise it will look like a horror film rather than a beauty shot. Again, it is a trial and error experimentation. In my workshops in Europe, I especially want to go to places where they have an opportunity to capture a special background, let's say an Eiffel Tower or a place in Rome that is very unique and attracts attention. In those places, what is important is not to use the camera at its widest aperture. That means you don't want to create an image where everything in the background is diffused to a smooth color, but you want to create enough detail that it tells a story. Remember, your photography is about telling a story. It could be simple as taking a portraiture and the face and the look of the person or the way they're dressed tells a story. But oftentimes, if you include a background, then it becomes a more pronounced photograph. It tells you a lot more about the way that image relates to that person. For example, if somebody is doing a profession, a baker, you want to have the instruments of his profession around him. If you're doing a florist, you want to have the flowers all around. And maybe you don't want them to be all out of focus. That is where this type of photography becomes very important. That means in a place where it's dimly lit, you can use the lowest ISO, take a photograph, knowing that you have created an isolation between the subject and the background, yet still included enough of the background to create a story. And that brings me to that most important part of why I like to use flash, is because I can use the lowest ISO 100 or 80 or 160 depending on the camera to capture that beautiful image that is sharp, that is in focus, and I can use the best range in the camera to create that image. For example, if you are doing a photography in the low light circumstances, you may not be able to dial your aperture to 5.6 if that's what you want to do. But if you have a flash, then you can dial to 5.6, even to f16, to get as sharpness and as much of the background or detail you want to include in your photograph. That is what creates that flash advantage. And also the fact that you use the lower ISO means that there is less noise and less cleanup, and the image does not need to be degraded when you take it into your computer and edit it. Editing is, of course, another aspect of the photography, which I also teach, but those things we will discuss in our future episodes. What is important is to begin the right way and do it the right way, and just use the camera beyond its basic form, which is the camera and a lens. If you use it with a flash, that's what is going to happen. If you have questions about flashes and how to choose the settings, how to control them, there is a whole bunch of information on our website. I will be also answering those questions. We will soon do a question and answer session on our online platform, also on our YouTube channel, where you'll be able to ask questions and have answers to them instantly. And that is, I think, a great way to transfer the information that I have to the next generation and to people who are interested. As an educator, as a photographer, I feel that there's so much to explore, and exploration begins by taking a chance, by getting out of your comfort zone. That's what is important. And flash photography is probably the next step that you should be exploring. We'll get into more details in our future episodes, but I challenge you right now to go and explore photography through a different perspective. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in our next episode.